Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Grieco, here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and I am joined by a lovely crew of people today to discuss Persona 5. As always, I am joined by Billy. You're totally going to date Futaba when she wakes up. Rothert.
No, I won't. Because my real love, which I'll talk about later, is not Futaba. I was going to drop it now, but I realized it's a tasty morsel we should talk about later in the podcast. You think it's Futaba. I see why you think it's Futaba, but you don't know me like that.
I maintain I have not changed my opinion in any way.
You don't know.
You don't know Futaba yet, Billy.
You don't know what my heart yearns for. You don't know what my heart is hungry for.
When she wakes up, we'll see. Sleeping Beauty's going to wake up and she's going to be like, hey, want to play video games? And you're going to be like, fuck, I do.
She gets me.
We are also joined by that deep, sultry voice of Pete. On is my Neapolitan queen? Neapolitan queen.
Just look, she's the full package. She's chocolate, she's vanilla, she's even strawberry if you want a little something spicy. You know, she's the whole thing. And I swear, I'll say right now, if Billy goes anywhere near my woman, I'm breaking his knees.
That's fair. He's near full power now, Billy. You should watch out.
I'm breaking his knees.
He's been charging for days.
Months.
And we are also joined by Devin. I don't know where you stand quite yet, DiFrancesco.
I know where I stand. Unfortunately, it's on the same rock that Billy wants to stand on.
Wait, so you are also mainlining Makoto?
Yeah.
That was my move. So, touche.
That was also another of our friends. Apparently, she's like canon.
She's the canon girlfriend.
You guys picked wrong.
I mean, if you watch the scenes, at least the ones I've seen so far, definitely seem pushing you towards Makoto.
The beach trip, there was a definite vibe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I chose Makoto too as future waifu, and some of the reasons for it were because I personally have an interest in Aikido as a martial art, she practiced Aikido as a martial art.
That's true.
That's a great reason.
Girl.
We have common interest. I like her ability to self-examine, her introspection. It's great. I'm all about it. I'm intellectually stimulated.
You guys are crazy.
Yeah, we'll see.
I've had aunts in my life, Pete, and they...
Don't you talk about her that way. She's one of a kind.
She's a model, and she speaks English.
She's quarter American or something? I forget exactly what, but it's...
Finland?
Compelling.
She's a quarter blonde.
Sweden? I wonder if half of our listener base really relates to An being from Finland/Sweden, where half of our listener base is.
That's
She's
fair.
been with us from the beginning. She's an OG.
She does ride or die with the squad.
She does.
Have to give her that.
She's down for all... She hangs around despite all you chuckleheads.
Yeah, I know.
Despite Ryuji's constant existence.
She's ride or die.
Yep.
Ever since watching Fast and Furious, I told myself I need a ride or die chick like that. And I finally found one.
If this is doesn't the lady Sloane, is that her name? Who's the lady from Fast and Furious? Because doesn't she get like brainwashed in the later movies? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not Sloane, but yeah.
I don't know. I forget her name.
You can still be ride or die if you get brainwashed. That's not your fault.
That's
Nothing
fair.
you can do.
That's fair. Those movies go crazy places. So we're talking about Persona 5 today.
Not Fast and Furious.
If you couldn't tell, and we do not, I believe, have feedback specific to this episode, which is fine. We've had a lot of feedback. Or wait, do we have it? Oh, we do. I lied. We have more.
Lied on the internet.
I'm sorry. I corrected myself quickly. As quickly as I could. We have email, and if you want to send an email or get in touch with the show, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter or deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got comment sections, or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, or just hit me up at thatpinguino on Twitter.
So many options.
You could sound something like this. This is from Kyle, our superfan Kyle. He says, "Hello, Deep Crew. First off, I graciously accept the title bequeathed to me last podcast, which was Superfan Kyle. It's better than being remembered for being a crazy Nets fan, which means, dun dun dun, we are at the bottom of who NJ4 Life was.
What?
Yeah.
You found him?
We found him. It was Superfan Kyle all along, which means I want a quick 5 seconds on the Nets. What do you think, Pete?
Has anything changed?
They're still in Brooklyn. They still are bad.
They're still hopeless. Yeah.
Oh, they've got D'Angelo Russell now.
Oh, you're right. They do. That was a good move. Strong move from the Nets. You know
That was
what?
a good move.
Shout out to Superfan Kyle. Nets are turning things around ever so slightly, which is really all we can hope for from
They
the Nets.
traded for DeMar Carroll and got off a bad contract recently. They got some money back. They're doing things that
They're
I
doing
like.
okay.
They
They're
set
doing okay.
Brook Lopez free to be the butterfly he always could be. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, what other center do you know who's 7 feet and grabs 5 rebounds a game? Incredible.
Yeah, unstoppable. I have a Brook.
Does he bamboozle people from all angles?
He does. He shoots threes now. It's crazy. He's like really tall but can shoot. And I have a Joe Johnson bobblehead that looks at me every day at work. So that's all my.
Are we
Nets
done
knowledge.
with the b-ball?
Yes, we're done with the b-ball. That's enough until we start playing Pyre.
You could play it in Persona 4, couldn't you?
No, yes, in Persona 4 you can, and one of the famous lines from the b-ball team is, "I love to shine them ball. I love them balls."
Nice. Class move, Persona, as always.
Persona 4 is great. So
No horniness.
on with the rest of the podcast. On with the rest of the email. Anyways,
On with the rest of the email.
ha ha. Anyway, last time you guys were talking about how the social links are skewed towards females. There aren't any gay romance options, and how sleazy you can be. Gino's the only one who could have seen this so far, though Gino's not a scumbag, so he wouldn't know it exists. But the game does punish you for dating multiple girls at once, unlike Persona 4. It's only a scene, however, and no gameplay punishment, but it's a step forward in my opinion. I watched a stream where someone accidentally began a relationship with Makoto after getting involved with Kawakami, and the scene is really something. Only one question this time. In games like Persona, Elder Scrolls, and others, one of the big selling points is being able to project yourself onto the main character. For that reason, representation of different sexualities is important. However, I find that such a thing gets tricky when the player character is a creation of the developer with a well-defined-ish personality and history such as the protagonist of Persona 4, rather than a player-made one, as in the Elder Scrolls games. At what point should the developers take a stand and say, this character is straight, gay, bi, anything else? And when should they put the character's sexuality into the player's hands? I was wondering this since the last podcast, as it wasn't until then that I really considered the fact that none of the Persona games have gay romance options. I haven't decided on my own answer yet, but I can say one thing. You probably should have been able to take Yusuke to Bone Town. Thanks for all the entertainment, Kyle from Vancouver.
Wow.
I don't know
Shout out
if
to Kyle. Good question.
everyone has gotten to this part, but you do take Yusuke on a very romantic boat ride.
Yeah, and then he berates a couple for not acting more romantic, more in love.
All I gotta say, Superfan Kyle, I couldn't have wrapped up a feedback better myself.
Yeah.
My only regret is that it might intimidate other listeners from trying to submit feedback, because that one was damn good.
It was.
Now,
The first part of the question, I think. So when does a developer decide what the character's sexuality is? I think it really comes down to what sort of vision the developer has for the character. A character like the main character in Persona 4, who we have to call the main Persona 5, we have to call him the main character because he doesn't have a name. Because he is meant to be a blank slate other than a few very important, biographical facts.
And his kick-ass style.
Yes, and his kick-ass style and glasses. But largely, he is a nameless cipher kid who interfered with some guy assaulting some woman, and then he has to live with this dude named Sojiro Sakura. And these events happen to him, but your responses to the events, everything from kind of moving to Tokyo onward, is all in the hands of the player. And so I feel like the sexuality of the main character in Persona 5 really could totally be up to the character, the player, and it wouldn't, be off in any way. Now, when it comes to the sexuality of other main characters in other games where the main character is more defined, like in a Tales game or a Final Fantasy game, or things where the main character is definitely, they have a name, they have a backstory, they're definitely going to do something specific, like they have friends and family that are really important. When the draw is really telling that character's story, then I think you get into the area where, the author the writer probably has some sexual orientation in mind. Though I think even that can be a little bit fluid, like something like Life is Strange.
I kind of mentioned Mass Effect, and that while you do have some power over, what direction your character goes in, Mass Effect, Commander Shepard for Mass Effect is definitely not a, literally create your own character as you would have, an Elder Scrolls game. And they were able to very easily and very seamlessly support, alien relationships, relationships with multiple different genders. So yeah, I personally think in most cases, unless you have a reason, something in their backstory that would make it unreasonable for them to be, not a certain way, I feel like it's just a lot easier to make your character be potentially bisexual. I mean, I feel like it just allows more people to be able to connect with your character for pretty little harm.
And I'll add and say that when I think about a developer, not just a developer, but also the writers, because those things could be different, whomever is responsible for the narrative, if they want to make a game that is more linear and not have as much player choice, they obviously do lose out on some of that cipher ability, their ability to have the player project themselves. But you should be able to be a developer or writer and say, I want to write a story about a person on this sliding scale of the spectrum, and that's the character that I want to have the story centered around. 100%. We shouldn't inherently critique a writer for not giving us a choice because they wanted to tell that kind of story. So if the writer chooses a straight character, bi character, gay character, whatever it is, that is a writing choice. If a developer is going to give us some option, we need to be careful not to give bias options. I think that's the heart of the issue, is that we were given the illusion of choice, but some people did not have choice, because if we're going to be given a game, hey, project yourself onto this character, we've given you lots of options, and as soon as a player says, well, the option that I would choose isn't here, that's where we have a problem.
Yeah, and I think that spurring off of that, some of the games, I think if a game is very specifically going for a deliberate story, like To the Moon, for example, the sexuality of the main character in To the Moon is very important. It's a game about him and his wife and their relationship. Now, one thing I do want to push back on, Devin, is the idea that a character should, bi is definitely easier. I think that, yeah, to a certain degree it is when you're trying to give your player choice, but what worries me a little bit is when the bi brush is just applied pretty evenly to every character. Something that jumps out to me is Dragon Age 2, where every character is bi. Basically, every romanceable character is bi. And so you could romance whoever you want with whatever character you have, with basically no change in what their backstory necessarily has to be. And so I think that it makes the characterizations feel more frivolous when every single character can be attracted any which way, and there's not really a change in their backstory or an explanation. It doesn't feel like the team that you're marshaling together is a team of bisexual characters. It feels like they're a team of characters who are just kind of who they are, and they just happen to be bi when you decide you want to fuck them. And that's a pretty weird, that's a pretty interesting dynamic where it feels like it's maximum choice, but ultimately it feels even more frivolous than not making a choice, not making a more linear choice. So
I can definitely see that argument, but I feel like, just unfortunately for how the public is going to consume, it's kind of difficult to have a specifically gay protagonist. I mean, just not that many games are going to be able to do that. So I think you kind of have to. I think the thing that allows the fewest evils in is to where possible, where you have all these choices like in a Persona game or a Mass Effect game or a Dragon Age game. I do feel like the option that lets the least evil in is making as many of your characters buy as possible.
I'd like to make a point then immediately contradict it, if I can do that.
Go right ahead. You love doing that.
Yeah, I do like that. So I would say complicating, not contradicting, but all the same. So, I think all the points you've made, they're solid, they're interesting, they're good. I just want to add that if you're going to tell a story and you want to have your character, let's just say, have a certain sexuality, that story needs to support it. Like, I'm reminded of, do you remember like a few years ago, I'm no expert on the series, but when J.K. Rowling came out and basically, suggested Dumbledore was gay.
Yep.
Fine,
I remember
awesome.
that.
That'd be great. The problem is there's no evidence in the story of for his sexuality, right? So I think, right. So you can't just come out and make these claims because as much as an author might like to have, ultimate authority over their world, it's still an independent entity beyond them, right? There's a text there that needs to support whatever the determination is going to be. Now, even as I say that, I'm forced to wonder whether I would make the same claim. Like if she had said, yeah, Dumbledore's straight, I might have, my first thought would probably have been like, yeah, of course he's straight. There's no indication that he's gay. As if the sort of, straight is the default, right? So I wonder if that position, while I stand by it, right, the text has to support it, if that very position might somehow create a heteronormativity I don't really like. You know what I'm saying?
I can definitely see that. And I think that's where just the argument that if your game is going to deal with sexuality in a way and you have a statement to say about it one way or another, you got to scaffold it into your characters and just be intentional. Being intentional tends to solve most of your problems, as long as you're going in with a goal. And just one specific thing to the Persona 5 kind of punishing you, giving you a scene if you're dating around. Persona 4 doesn't really... There are some awkward scenes where you can run into, someone you're two-timing. Persona 5 has a scene at the end of the game that kind of punishes... gives you some comeuppance for dating around. Persona 3, though, has the most extreme punishment for dating around. And that is, if you get caught dating around and cheating on someone, you will have a Persona reverse that will, I believe, just destroy your social link with that person.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense, but...
Yeah. So, that is really extreme. And that was what Persona 3 did to... look, if you're going to two-time, don't fucking get caught. Because if you do, it's really bad for your character development, which is kind of problematic in its own way. But I just like the idea that the game really punishes you for being a jerk versus the other games where it's just like a slap on the wrist.
What I would really love Persona 6 to do is make a breakup a very reasonable part of the narrative. Because in every game where I've played a relationship as an option, it's always just been perfect.
It's linear.
It's hey, we talk and I've had sentences at you enough that now we do sex.
I spent some money on a gift for you.
Wow. I went to your home world and I rescued some civilians from a slave trader, and now we have alien mind sex.
Yeah, I can count, I think there's 2 video game relationships I can think of that are non-linear. There's the character in Mass Effect 2, Jack. Jack, if you bone her at the first opportunity, she will not date you. And then there's a character in Persona 4 who coerces you into dating her because she just has really low self-esteem and needs someone to be around her. And if you just keep being a sycophant and just trying to boost her up without telling her hard truths about herself, she will not date you anymore. You will end up in the friend zone.
I just really want a game to allow a relationship to fail and actually grapple with that.
Yeah, and there's a relationship in Persona 4 where it starts out as a weird fling, and then by the end of it, it is very much not romantic, which is really different than Persona 5. Like, every relationship in Persona 5 starts as a friendship or some sort of transactional relationship, and then it results in a relationship that's romantic, regardless of what you say or do.
I'd like it if after the breakup too, there was just like there was a status effect that was just like it's awkward, and like all your moves are just like a little bit worse. Like nothing's really going right.
You wouldn't get like your one more. You couldn't like baton pass them for a while.
Like it's just kind of weird. I don't know.
We're kind of going through the motions. Like the texts from them are just like so ... But you're still at like level 9, and so you want to hang out with them to get to level 10, but all of a sudden they can't find time to go to the park.
I seem like you both schedule things, but like you never show up really. Like, oh no, we should totally do that this weekend, and then it's just a wasted afternoon.
I like this game. Persona 6, get on it. So if you want to send in feedback, if you want to sound like Kyle, go ahead and hit us up at DeepListensPod on Twitter, at ThatPinguino on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. You can hit up our comment sections, or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. So, without further ado, Persona 5, Dungeon 4, the Futaba Files. So I guess to set this up, you meet Futaba. She is, well, first you meet Medjed. There's
Medjed.
Did we get all the way to the end of the Kaneshiro stuff?
Yeah.
Did we get all the way to the end of that?
You beat him and Makoto joins your team.
Yeah. Okay.
He's a fly rolling a giant ball of dung, basically. That's a piggy bank.
Pretty much.
That fight sucks.
The whole dungeon sucks.
Really?
I just found it easy. I just found it really easy.
Yeah, it was easy, but I guess I didn't find it so easy that I wasn't having fun. I found that I was being rewarded for learning the game at that point. Like, I had learned the game, and so I was being rewarded for actually paying attention.
I have put countless number of hours into grinding, and therefore it's easier.
Also, I was probably 5 levels ahead of the average.
He's just a nothing character, though. Like, all right, he's a greedy, like, Yakuza underling.
Yeah, I found him just a lot less compelling than Madarame or Kamoshida. Like,
or Futaba.
Both of those, or Futaba. Like,
well,
I think
Futaba's probably rank 1 compelling right now.
Yeah, of all of the villains, I think Kaneshiro is probably the least compelling, just period. Which
That's
is
good.
fine. He's a underboss who I do
Someone
like
has
when
to come last.
he gives away the money and then is like, I now have a hole in my case. You're gonna fill it
He was just an excuse for Makoto to shine.
and to join your team.
Yeah.
Get her motorcycle.
Her motorcycle, Joan the Pope.
Yeah!
Sure.
I love it.
What a great persona. It's a transformer too.
Don't understand why it's a motorcycle, but whatever.
I think it's a cop thing. That'd be my guess.
Because she's
Oh
Mad
yeah, I
Max.
guess that sort of makes sense.
Maybe.
I thought it was a Mad Max sort of shout out.
Why
With her
is
outfit.
Captain Kidd just like popping a healy on a boat?
Because he's a
That seems
pirate.
perfect. Yeah, I see no inconsistency.
Because he's a pirate. Joan the Pope was a human woman, not Optimus
But also
Prime.
a motorcycle
wasn't
transformer.
She wasn't a human woman.
Well,
with
I mean,
also
nuclear
the myth.
powers.
in the myth, she was a human woman.
In the myth, yes, correct.
We should write some fanfic of her being a transformer motorcycle.
Yep. Just all canon. Well, she was the first female pope, also the first Cybertronian pope. So you beat Kaneshiro, Makoto joins your team, and then you've got the best character on your team. She's got nuclear powers, and those are
Talking
pretty
about
good.
An? She was always on your team.
No,
Sure,
we're about
beat
Makoto, the actual best, not
the canon
vanilla with no chocolate and or strawberry. Because
One of the other reasons
what
why
Am
I
Am
like
really is.
Makoto is because I was getting really tired of Morgana being the narrator of the combat, and I like Makoto being the narrator of the combat. I also liked that we got that she was the little sister of the interrogator that's interrogating you in the sort of framing scenes of the story. I just want to, at some point at the end of the game, her say, like, You did all this, and you slept with my sister? I just want that conversation to come up in the interrogation room. And you hooked up with my little sister?
No. Yeah,
Also, she's older than you, though.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Makoto is?
Yep.
Makoto's a third year.
I just like that when Makoto joins the team, there's a damn adult in the room. Someone to tell Ryuji to shut the hell up.
That's a good point.
Other than me. I always tell him to shut the hell up, but she's like,
Gino's
hey,
trying
guys.
to type in his own answers to the questions.
Shut the fuck up, Ryuji. Ryuji, we're in a crowded room. Stop saying we're the Phantom Thieves. Like, I feel like as soon as Makoto joins, she should be like, hey, why don't we meet someplace that isn't the most crowded train station on the planet? What if we met in, like, an alley? Just someplace else. Anywhere else, guys. Come on.
Do you know how easy it was for me to track you guys? Do you know how easy it was?
So easy. You idiots. You keep hanging out. All of you are involved. It's not hard to figure out that you're doing stuff. Come on. You recruited the frickin' painter kid? Come on.
Monorami is all over the news, and you're just with his apprentice. Constantly.
Hanging out with his apprentice, hanging out at the train station, and then you disappear from the train station.
Well, that's not
guys.
weird. People disappear from train stations because they get on trains and leave.
No, but like the way it works is you literally just stand there, and then suddenly they're in the metaverse, and they just in real world are gonzos, and then suddenly are backzos.
They just vanish from the hallway. It's not a great plan, is what I'm saying. That's fine. Makoto's there. Everything's going to be cool. And so you eventually get pulled into this next problem where Medjed, this anonymous stand-in. Pete, do you have something to say about Medjed?
Like every time they used the phrase hacktivist, look, Persona was too good for me to quit, but I wish it had been worse in those moments so I could have quit the game.
Yeah. The hacktivist group Medjed. I like that it's a fake Egyptian thing also.
And they show like a picture of it, and it's like a stump with two legs or something.
Yeah.
It's just a very weird Egyptian god.
Medjed's not a fake Egyptian deity, though. It's a real Egyptian deity.
Yeah, but I mean, look, let's not disparage if any of our listeners, are faithful to the old gods, sure, whatever. But like on the list of like Anubis, Ra, like you have to go pretty far down to get to Medjed.
That's true.
But Medjed just rolls right off the tongue.
That's true. It's a sweet name to say.
It's the sort of thing. Look, just because they're down with the not so cool gods, they're down with the OG gods.
Deep cuts.
The deep cut gods. Look, you casual Egyptian fans are down with Anubis, but the real fans are down with Medjed. Yeah, so you meet Medjed. They threaten the Japanese government because the Phantom Thieves are doing...
cramping their style, I guess. Yeah.
They're like giving out false justice.
It's a really poorly defined rationale. We're the real vigilantes. You can't vigilante while we're vigilanteing people who have stopped like Yakuza guy, like
multiple child predators.
Yeah, 2 child predators and a low-level Yakuza dude.
That's not
I just had the scene that kind of explained and made some of this a little more understandable.
Yeah, I know what that whole thing is, but it's it's really poorly defined. Like the idea that an international hacktivist organization would target some random dudes who seem to be interfering with low-level criminals in Tokyo. Like, I don't...
Sure.
Madarame isn't low level. He was like the king of the art world.
In Tokyo. In Japan. Like, could you name a single Japanese contemporary artist right now?
I might be able to do novelists.
Yeah, but not like a painter.
No.
The guy who does the Daub thing or whatever it is, I don't actually know his name off the top of my head. It's hard to say.
I can't name any contemporary artist.
Exactly.
Do you guys know Daub?
No.
Is that the thing you do with your arms?
No, not
That's
not
Dab.
not the thing you're thinking of.
Oh, you're thinking of Cam Newton, the guy who does the Dob.
No, I'll send it. We can
Okay.
share it in the show notes.
Okay. But yeah, I'm just saying, even if he was the Rembrandt of his time and he was abusing children, like, I don't know that it would raise, like, it might get a little news ticker on the nightly news, but I doubt that it would, raise the ire of an international hacking consortium, especially not to take down the people who took him down. It just seemed, but it's supposed to be conspicuous, so whatever. And so you get contacted by a mysterious little dog mouth
Alibaba.
named
Like
Alibaba.
a chain chomp with ears.
Yeah, change up with ears.
Hacks into your phone, starts sending you texts. And,
Oh no, I can't reply.
Yep. And Alibaba asks you to
Click on.
steal her heart. And she makes a request.
Mhm.
And if you steal her heart, she will then save Japan from MedJed.
Well,
So-
she'll
It's a
save
much
you
less
from MedJed,
convoluted-
so you can
uh,
save Japan from MedJed.
It's a much less convoluted route to saving Japan than is usually occurring on anime.
When you frame it that way, you're right. But you figure out that it turns out Alibaba is Sojiro Sakura's adopted daughter who lives like next door. So that's super convenient. Thank goodness.
Right? We don't have to go very far.
It was going to be a real pain in the ass if
Right.
you had to track someone else down.
It would really suck if you had to pay 200 yen every time on the subway.
Yep.
It really cut into my cash flow.
Just hitting the bricks, just walking. Where is this person? Oh my goodness. Or if you had to fly in order to get to Alibaba.
Right? Like,
That'd be
thank
kinda
God
cool.
the head of an international hacking conspiracy lives right next door.
Lives right next door. Heaven forbid they were in India or the UK or something.
Nope.
How would that even work? Would you have to fly there in the metaverse and then fly back? Because time
Can-
seems to flow at a normal pace.
Can Morgana turn into a plane?
Cat plane.
Maybe
pretty great.
Morgana and Makoto's personas can combine, and together they can become a plane.
Save it for the anime. Persona 5 anime.
Persona 5 anime creators, please be listening to our podcast.
Yes.
Could be like a Sundara plane.
Ugh.
Hot Undertale references.
Oh, you mean Game of the Year runner-up, Undertale?
Should have
What
been the
won that
winner.
year?
I was not happy with that result. Honestly, I was
Do you
yelling at you
remember-
guys.
Billy, do you remember what game won that year?
Was it Game of the Year Volta Story, Abyssal City?
I think it was Game of the Year of all the story, Abyssal City, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why you guys have any listeners after you made that choice.
Look, I'm just out here trying to keep the listeners we have, trying to add to them, and then once every couple weeks, Billy's like, what if we lost a couple? We find out who the real fans are.
Billy wants it tight. He wants the ride or die fans.
That's
He
true.
just wants to do so many exposés on grinding.
We should have an episode that's just Billy alone in a room talking about grinding.
Just Billy reading off item drop tables.
And
escape
the-
rope, 15%.
If you're carrying 2 lucky coins, there's a 0.03% greater chance of getting angel sapphires and demon rubies. But you got to say it like a really calm Bob Ross, NPR kind of voice.
I would much rather just have it be a joke one where you're just mumbling to yourself as you
Just
play
muttering.
the game. And you're pretending that you're not really doing a puzzle, but you're just muttering incoherently. Occasionally it makes sense, and it's obviously you grinding and getting your fix.
50% drop chance. I didn't get anything 4 times in a row. What the fuck? What's happening?
Although
So
I think about that every time I have 2 flying enemies, and An tries to shoot one of them 13 fucking times.
I swear to God, if you say another bad thing about my woman, I will burn this podcast to the ground.
She is seriously the least accurate gun user.
There was,
Sons of
I mean,
bitches. You filthy sons of bitch.
It was a 1 out of 600,000 chance. I did the math. If you raise 2 to like the 14th power, which is how often she missed that one target.
But it is fun when she does it, when it works out. When it doesn't work out, it's kind of a bummer. I guess I should tell you something, Billy.
Yeah.
On the drop charts, the ZP podcast I did about Final Fantasy X-2, we actually got feedback where someone sent us an Excel spreadsheet full of percentages and probabilities that Yojimbo from Final Fantasy X would use his ultimate move, depending on how much you paid him.
You want to talk about a trip to Bone Town?
What?
I'll take a one-way ticket to that festival.
That spreadsheet.
Now, I will say that On single-handedly scored me an achievement by just triple tapping the line and getting a triple kill, and it was the entire. There's an achievement for defeating every enemy in an encounter with gun attacks, and On achieved that achievement. She was the only one who could have done it.
Thank goodness. Putting the team on her back.
Yep.
So, Medjed, you get introduced to Futaba, and then you're introduced to the most awesome dungeon in, I think, the game at this point.
Yeah, definitely at this point.
Yeah, that dungeon was fantastic.
Kick ass.
Yeah.
I will say, I actually died a fair amount of times. I have really not had any trouble at all prior to this dungeon. I think the problem was I was following the Strength Arcana, and I got Nico Shogun, and I am just addicted to Invigorate. I had the same addiction in Persona 4 too, and Nico Shogun has a weakness to wind, and the Isis persona just really liked to Garula me and then like combo me to death. It happened far too many times. I also once succumbed to despair. I didn't know the number of turns you had before you succumbed, and I found that out. I know now. It will not happen again.
Wait, how many? Despair, it just insta-kills you after a certain amount of time?
Despair is by far the darkest status ailment I think I've seen in a game. It literally, it paralyzes you, makes you lose SP for like 3 turns in a row, and then you literally kill yourself.
Really?
Like, do they animate it too? Like, you don't just collapse, like, does somebody, like...
No, you just collapse, but it says you
Okay.
succumb, and its name is Despair. Like, it's not like a death clock on you. It is literally like you are despairing, you succumb to your despair, and the obvious implication is that you killed yourself.
I did not. That never happened to me. I guess
Okay,
I always cured it or killed the enemy too quickly. That's crazy. Yeah, this is a bad dungeon to be weak to wind. It's also a bad dungeon to be weak to, I think, light? Is
Yeah,
it?
light and dark, which Nico Shogun did do really well because it was strong to dark and null to light. What are you guys' like set of personas like? I don't know if you remember anymore, Gino.
I
but
remember that I
and
had
Billy might.
I had Isis on lock, and she was crushing it because she was immune to most of the bad elements in this place. And my Isis, I believe, had a Mapsio, the psychic attack that hits everyone, and so she was capable of taking down everything, but was immune to most of what everything was sending back my way.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'll let everyone else talk more about the combat, but I thought it was neat that in the dungeon where we kind of learn about cognitive science, we haven't really talked about that yet, but cognitive science with a PSI in front, almost like an unreasonable number of the enemies were weak to psi, if I remember correctly.
Yep. I really like the influx of Egyptian-themed enemies. I like that now the enemies start having some, sort of thematic consistency with the environments you're entering.
Yeah, I really like that too.
So some of what I'm looking for when I make a Persona squad, and it's evolved throughout the game, but I want to... Okay, so since I'm basically able to farm treasure demons as much as I want, I don't even have to, request them from the Velvet Room. I can just go get them because I get them so frequently. I probably caught 12 in the game so far, maybe more. I'm really taking advantage of blending them with personas and just making sure I have all my elemental bases covered. And I can just repeat that whenever I want with just, and basically all I'm picking is the resistances of that dungeon. So when I find out what's getting thrown at me, I just do a hot swap, and the persona might not have the best stats as I could have if I picked a persona and stuck with it throughout the game. But that persona, it doesn't matter. I just deal with everything.
What about you, Pete?
So I spent a lot of time trying to grind out that penis monster from Kamashira's dungeon.
Yep.
I just, I seemed like a good guy to have on my squad. So I've been running with him for a little while.
So you grinded out the penis monster?
I grinded out the penis monster.
Are you talking about the bedside brute incubus or something else? What are you
No.
thinking?
There was one, I don't even know if you can get him or not. I don't actually have. Do you remember when Kamashira's dungeon when there was one that actually looked like?
It was just a big dick monster.
Yeah, it just looked like a dick.
Do you
Just-
remember its name?
Yeah, I don't remember its name, but
It was
just-
like a unique boss.
Yeah.
It was like a unique enemy that doesn't show up again.
Well, it shows up again, but it doesn't show up for a while. It's actually
Oh.
a higher level persona, and
Yeah, it comes back around.
it does. The dick monster
man.
comes back, and fun fact: it's not the only dick monster in this game.
There are multiple dick monsters.
This game has
You know,
there is a
I don't know
there's
why
a
I'm
persona.
surprised.
Yeah, there's a persona that has been in multiple Persona games called Mara. That is a gigantic chariot with a dick riding it, and it's got a mouth. Its urethra is a mouth, and it's horrifying. And this game has multiples. It's crazy. The more you know.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to build an exclusively phallic team then.
You can. You got Incubus. You got 2 different dick monsters. I don't know if you can get all the way, though. All the way up.
All right, Mara's ridiculous. Like this can't. Like, I'm Google imaging it now, and this is absurd.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine something slightly more subtle. It's not. It's literally a dick with tentacles on a chariot. That's exactly what it is.
Why did you think I was... Why would I make that up?
I don't know. Gino, I didn't think you were lying, but, like, I thought something slightly less obvious. But no.
Why did you think that'd be in my head? Jesus. Well, thankfully, Futaba's dungeon has none of the dick monsters. It just has Anubis and other messed up Egyptian shit. I really enjoyed how the game in Futaba's dungeon, first you need to get a map, and you need to do that by like going to a town that's near her like desert palace or tomb. And then once you get the map, you head back, and the entrance is just all open. And the whole level, it seems like she's just going to let you walk in and take her treasure immediately because she wants your help.
Mm-hmm.
And then she kind of has a flashback, and it triggers her defenses, and she starts seeing you as an enemy. And I really like the idea that her dungeon is created by someone who has a repressed memory, that there's something that is messed up with her psyche that was kind of inflicted upon her instead of growing out of some unhealthy desire the way all the other characters are. And I think that is the most of, like, the closest this game gets to the heights of Persona 4's level design, when you start dealing with characters who have more repressed and more complex issues with their psyche, rather than the straightforward dungeons that you get at the beginning of Persona 4. And so the moment where, like, the trapdoor drops out from under you and the boulders start coming and you start getting Indiana Jones nonsense is where I think this dungeon starts really shining. And I like that ultimately as you're weaving through the dungeon, you are unlocking those big doors in the main hallway. And so the structure and the layout of the dungeon itself, I think, is a lot more interesting than some of the other ones, which are kind of these linear dungeon crawls. This one is a lot of side hubs that then come back to the same hallway. And unlocking each of the doors, you have to kind of do these sliding tile puzzles, which basically tell you what happened to Futaba to make her perceive the world in this way. And it's that her mother died in front of her eyes, and she kind of repressed what happened to her mother and whose fault it was. She kind of blames herself, and I guess some people in her life told her that her mother blamed her and that she was the reason her mother died, and so it really screwed up her perception of her relationship with her mom and her own sense of self-esteem. But as you work your way through, you start realizing that Wakaba, her mom, loved her, like put her above all things, and there was foul play involved.
I'd like to see, I mean, speaking of sort of the way we dive into this sort of internal structure, this is an interesting one as well, because this is the first, and at least so far only, dungeon where there's sort of multiple representations of a person's internal life. So you have sort of the main villainous persona that you're going to have to confront at the end, but there's also just a shadow version of Futaba, who's like initially maybe wary, a little bit threatening, and then, you know, as your relationship with the real one evolves, the shadow one evolves too. And I think it's an interesting dynamic that, honestly, I'd like to see go even further. I mean, if we're talking about this sort of idea, the whole, you know, notion of a persona is, you know, person as multitudes, that we all have sort of these fronts or these differing sort of, I don't know, facades maybe is a little too fake of a word, but different aspects of ourselves we put forward. You know, why not have that reflected in the dungeon as well? Like multiple aspects of a person's personality, as opposed to these sort of all-consuming individual desires. I get why that makes sense within the context of this, oh, we need to steal a treasure from the palace. But it'd be interesting if you had these sort of multiple dynamics.
Yeah, and I think that Futaba, it works. So one, the game uses the term facade when talking about the personas.
Okay.
So I think that...
I think 4 calls it out, and maybe like when you get the persona or something like that, it's like the facade you use to confront life's problems or something like that.
To overcome... think of it as a facade you use to overcome life's hardships. Something like that. Igor says some highfalutin nonsense. But I
if
really
Igor was a romance option, I'd be all into that nose.
That nose. Yeah, I really love that. Like you said, there's these multiple. There's the Futaba voice that's like there's the shadow version of her that's clearly her and her desires, though obviously that shadow seems to know a little bit more than the conscious Futaba does.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's these voices that seem external that are attacking her. And it's interesting to see that played out in a physical space, like this person's internal struggles. It really it reminds me a lot of a Psychonauts level. And it reminds, I guess, a little bit of the Milkman level, if you remember.
The Milkman Conspiracy.
Level. Yeah, the Milkman Conspiracy. Because you've
Good,
got
clean top line is the holy grail of head trimming.
Yes. You've got this character who has his own mental issues, but then he has had like hypnotic suggestion layered on top of it. And so there's a bunch of ideas in his head that didn't originate in his head. And so you kind of see this person whose psyche is torn, is pitted against itself. And I really also just enjoy the layout with so many tombs in the tomb, like all the sarcophagi, and like Anubis is an ever-present force in this temple. And so I think that there's just a thematic consistency throughout that plays a lot better than some of the other levels. Even though they're all pretty tonally consistent, I think that this one is probably the most dynamic and the most interesting. And you eventually fight your way up, and you have a very different battle than you do with most of the other enemies. I guess most of the other dungeons. You come up to the very end, and you're going to, send the calling card, and the final boss is not Futaba. It is her cognition, her perception of her mom, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that thing was crazy.
Yep.
That was definitely the first glimpse of like, wow, you are messed up. Like, I knew you were messed up before, but wow.
Yeah, your mom is a giant flying sphinx, and there's a scale of this boss fight that is just so much, it feels so much bigger than all the other boss fights that came before it. You're fighting on top of this gigantic pyramid, and there's this giant flying woman who, like, you can see her off in the distance and you can't even attack her with physical attacks, and then she comes back and swoops down on you, and then Futaba awakens to her persona. And Devin, did you want to say something about Futaba awakening to her persona?
So I definitely really liked, for one, just before we get into this part, but as said, the way that the Shadow Futaba was aware of things that the normal Futaba wasn't, and they have this like really intense dialogue where the Shadow Futaba like confronts her and says, "No, this is what really happened. Like you've been repressing it. This is the truth." And then when she finally awakens to her persona, Shadow Futaba becomes a spaceship that brings down just fantastic anime tentacles that just grab Futaba, and she has like a moment of, "Oh God, what is happening to me?" And they gets taken up into her spaceship and very quickly regains composure, like you do from anime tentacles, and is in complete control of the spaceship and kicks ass. But
and starts running shit like the super hacker she is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool scene, and then the tables get turned, and you can actually win the fight. And so I think that
ballista.
You get a ballista, you shoot her down, wail on her. I almost died in this fight. I think I did die the first time, and luckily the game lets you restart the fight.
I had Yosuke got Tempest Slash, and I'm not sure if it's really good, but at least in that fight, it seemed like it was doing an absurd amount. He did probably like 50% of the total damage that was done with Tempest Slash. I don't know if it's actually that good, or if it was just like a weird situation that made it really good, but it was just doing like nonsense damage.
It is that good. Yusuke is probably he is, I think, just the heaviest hitter on the squad.
Yeah,
he hits Howard. And I think we missed a scene at the beginning of this dungeon, the scene in the bus.
Oh, yep, we did miss that scene.
And this game's continuing thirst. I guess we can discuss this as an overarching.
Let's just put it right as a segue into later parts of the game. Trip?
Sure. So you get Futaba, she joins your team. But then, I guess something that's just continuing to come up is this game's just thirst. Deep, deep thirst. And it is primarily a heterosexual thirst. It is...
Except when it's not.
It is the male gaze, for the most part.
It's always the male gaze. It's not always heterosexual.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the male gaze, and I think that the game's narration and its use of stereotypes always implies that the main character is straight and heterosexual. Yeah. I mean, heterosexual guy, heterosexual male.
Well, we're referencing the next.
Oh, I know what you're referencing.
Yeah.
There's one scene. There's a couple scenes. One in last week's episode, I forgot to mention when we were talking about Yusuke's thirstiness. Did you guys remember that when he asks An to pose nude, he threatens to call the cops on you if she doesn't?
Shit, no. I don't remember that.
Yeah, he threatens to call the cops on you, and then he says, "But I won't if An poses for me."
Jesus.
Nude. And it's like, yo, this is not so fun anymore. And then, wacky hijinks follow, but the point where he's holding you basically at gunpoint saying, "Pose nude for me," kind of gross.
Super gross.
And it even more betrays Yusuke's character because he isn't like that. Basically, as far as I can tell, anywhere else in the game except for the part where they introduce him like that, and then he just completely 180s into one of the most reasonable and respectful characters.
Yeah, and now to be fair, when I offered to pose nude for him in the church, he was into that. He thought that was a good idea, but then he thought better of it because it was a church and he didn't want to get arrested.
At least you were offering, though.
Yeah. At least we have a consistent theme of nudity and the police being involved together.
Yes. But the scenes, like at the beginning of Futaba's dungeon, there's a scene where Ryuji, like everyone is sweaty and hot because you're in a desert, and I guess Morgana doesn't get AC when he transforms into a cat bus. And so everyone is just sweaty and on with her skin-tight suit. I think at that point they are still in...
Yeah, they're not in suit.
They're in regular clothes.
Not in suit, they're in the regular
clothes. She was
clothes.
just like airing out her like button down.
Yeah.
By doing the whole like shake it off of your like chest situation. And
it's a white
Yeah, it's
shirt.
a white top. there was also the indication that it was kind of becoming see-through from the sweat. But we cut to a scene where Ryuji is just like gawking down the front of her shirt, and the scene just like cuts away to like
even gets in on a little bit. Nowhere near as bad as Ryuji, but I think the protagonist
and Yusuke both kind of catch a glance. But
yeah,
it seems like Ryuji gets the biggest ass whooping out of this.
Well, the same thing happens a little bit during the when is the fireworks festival?
I believe it is after Madarame. No, it's after, I think, Kaneshiro.
It's after Kaneshiro.
It's the same basic thing, right? Where they're in a rainstorm and she has to wring out her... Gino, do you remember what that thing's called?
Yukata.
The yukata.
She has to wring out her yukata and she's flashing a little leg. And all three of them do like a weird glance away sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's way more respectful than other things that they do.
Good point. That's
like what a reasonable human would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the game does, like, I think Ryuji, doesn't he get super pushy about, like, yeah, you guys should wear yukata. Yeah, you guys should come to the fireworks festival with us and wear yukata. It'll be hot, basically.
I mean, it's just like a silk gown, right?
I mean, it's a traditional Japanese,
I don't think culturally it's supposed to be a sexy thing.
Well, maybe he thought, like, they were going to be wearing their freakum yukata, you know? Like the yukata you wear to the clubs.
I don't know. This game's just real thirsty, and the next sequence you get is... The next fun sequence after you recruit Futaba is a trip to the beach.
Beach trip!
Beach trip to Honolulu! Beach. The best part of the beach trip is...
Does Japan have beaches?
It does. It has a lot of them, and they're very good.
Oh.
I mean, it's
really
an
go in the
island.
Water in some of them. The beach I went to...
An island, but, you know...
Like, the beach that I went to when I was in Japan... the beach was beautiful and the waves super great, but if you go into the water, the riptide's so bad it'll kill you. So they're like, yeah, don't go in the water.
Don't die.
Just look. But I think the southern islands you can swim.
Okay.
Like around Okinawa and stuff like that. But the whole beach trip, the trip to Hawaii is ridiculous on a few levels. One, Yusuke was supposed to go to LA and his flight gets diverted to Hawaii at the last second. What?
Wait. Is that the beach trip?
Yeah, right? It's in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Man,
you fly to Hawaii. You fly to Hawaii and Yusuke's not supposed to be there, and then all of a sudden you meet him at the airport or something or at the hotel, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing here? He's like, there was inclement weather in LA, so they diverted us to Hawaii. What?
Because they're so close.
Two beaches? Was there a beach where Futaba tries on a swimsuit for the first time and then another?
Yes, those are two separate beach trips.
Yeah, I've only seen all right, I have missed the second beach trip. I've only seen the first.
Pete, you have seen the Hawaii trip.
Which is the one where he comes back with a handful of lobsters?
Oh, I might be talking about the wrong beach trip.
You're on the wrong one.
Oh, no.
You just spoiled stuff.
I spoiled... Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
We've seen the lobster one.
You've seen the lobster beach
where
trip.
Yusuke just has a handful of lobsters.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
And they're all trying to pick up chicks.
But not right. Yusuke. He just wants lobsters.
Yeah, he just wants lobsters. But not to eat, just for aesthetic purposes.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Yeah, you try to pick up chicks and you fail.
Yep. But it didn't matter because I already had on at that point. So, I mean, what was I doing with these other girls anyway?
That's fair.
And then we actually save On and Makoto.
Yep. From some sleazy dudes.
Yeah, and then...
Like wealthy-looking man. I can't remember what the other one was called.
It was like Arrogant Man or something like that.
They have great names for characters. And
then we hit a low point.
So this is the second low point. Pete, do you want to describe this low point?
Sure. So you're enjoying your day on the beach, and some gentlemen walk up to you, and they seem interested. They want to be a little flirtatious. How do I describe this?
They're old, lecherous.
They're old, lecherous gay men, and the game, like that's a fair way to describe them, based on the way the game wants you to feel about these old, lecherous gay men. It's all very off-putting for the characters and off-putting for the gamer for much different reasons.
Yeah, it's really just like the most stereotypical view of gay people, and it's played as a joke.
Gay men specifically.
Yeah, but yes, gay men specifically. Ryuji is basically being preyed upon by two older men. Yes. He basically begs you to save him, and then it's a crazy joke at the gay dude's expense.
And then they run away, and then the lobsters come.
It's the kind of thing that you just don't see that often in modern media anymore. At least not the media I usually partake in. And this is the second time this happens. This also happens in Shibuya, like the first time you go there. Oh, Shinjuku. Sorry.
Yeah, the red light district, Shinjuku.
Yeah, and it's off-putting there too. And it's not the last time you'll see these two gentlemen.
Ooh, they make a return. Do they get to be part of the party?
No.
Oh, odd.
I will say, I believe Lala Escargot, I think, is also a cross-dresser.
Yes, Lala's great.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the dichotomy between how Lala is portrayed as just like a very normal person. There's only like the one when you first start working at Crossroads, you have a moment where you can ask like, do I have to cross-dress to work here? And she says, no, obviously not. But
you can if you want to.
You can?
No. Lala says, if you want to, I can help you out with that.
Darn. I was hoping there was a way I could get my protagonist to cross-dress. You've raised my hopes and then immediately dashed them.
No, this isn't Persona 4.
Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting to see how Lala is treated as very reasonable. We really do not have... Lala is really not treated as a joke. If anything, Oya is the one who's treated as the non-reasonable person in that social link. Well, Lala, who's the, which you would expect would not be treated with respect, is just like a high-tier person. Just like totally great, high-quality human being. That's how she's portrayed. And then we have the two gay men who are not given that treatment as people at all. And are just a joke. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, Lala's cross-dressing is not a defining element. It's not treated as the defining element of her character versus the two gay guys where their names might as well be Gay Man 1, Gay Man 2. Like, they don't have any characterization beyond their thirstiness.
Their actual names, though, one of them is called like Beefy Trendsetter, which, despite this joke being bad, that name is pretty great.
Yep.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful joke kind of name right there. Beefy Trendsetter.
So I think that is as far as we've gotten story-wise. I feel like we should just do a check-in with you guys on where your social links are. What kind of mechanic stuff are you guys getting into? Like, have you maxed out any characters?
I can go first.
I have maxed out the politician. If anyone knew me in real life, they'd understand why this would have happened. Yoshida, his story is great. I was like not teared. I was definitely emotionally moved by Yoshida's story. I just really liked everything about him. And
Yoshida's the politician, right?
Yeah, no good Tora.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just thought his story was really great. I just highly recommend anyone who hasn't touched his story very much to touch it more. And I'm trying to think if there was anything like interesting from a deep analysis perspective about his story. It is interesting that a lot of this game very frequently, like for example for Futaba, when she awakens to her persona, like every person has, she like, I'm gonna crush those awful adults that make everything bad. And it's kind of interesting at the same time, our main character in his real life actually makes a lot of like really close and like important and critical adult friendships. It's kind of weird. I mean, not weird. Maybe it's trying to show like not everyone is bad. It's not an ageist thing. It's just like bad people in power. That doesn't mean all old people are bad. But it was a really interesting look at what maybe the kind of people that the Phantom Thieves are trying to install as leaders.
Yeah. Billy?
So as far as my mechanics are concerned, social links are concerned, I think I am at 4 points in knowledge and charm and 3 in everything else right now. I have no one at 10 yet, but I have a lot of characters up in the 7s and 8s. On Makoto.
You have Makoto at 7 or 8?
Yeah, I've been hanging out with her almost exclusively as waifu.
You do?
No. She's probably
possible.
6. She's probably.
I think she should be stuck at 5.
Yeah, I don't think you have enough courage for that.
Oh, you mean charm or guts?
Or no, charm. Yeah, I don't think you have enough charm for that.
Do I have to have 5 charm?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, well, anyway, I'm prioritizing charm for that. Doctor is really high. Let's see, who else is really high for me? I think that's it. I think that those are my primary social links. I have unfortunately not touched the politician, not for not wanting to do so, but I feel like I just missed a really good opportunity to start it earlier in the game. And it's kind of hard to go off of some of my weekly patterns to set that up, because earlier in the game, you had some free days where like you just kind of needed to go do batting cages or go like read a book in the library or go do some weird stuff. And I never really looked into the whole part-time job situation because I thought that was useless because I was making money from just the dungeons. I don't understand that the part-time jobs were a primary component of some sub-stories. So you can't do the politician story arc until you get a part-time job at, I think it's the Beef Bowl soup place or whatever.
Yeah, you just need to do 2 shifts there after you talk to him, and he'll be like, "Oh, you're really diligent. Work for me."
Yeah, so I'm fine with I'm fine with investing time in another social link. I wasn't fine with what that job made me do for it's like a 4 or 5 day investment of time to set up a social link that I could have done a lot easier earlier in the game because I had more garbage time earlier in the game. I'm just like a little bit bummed that I missed it, but it's recoverable. I'll just spend some extra time on the politician to come back. As far as mechanics go, I'm a little bit disappointed that I'm not seeing more of the support mechanics from your party members. Like there's the ones that say get a chance to do negotiation again, or get a chance to have better options in the negotiation phase of combat. I've never had that happen. I've had the friend steps in for a crit on the whole squad and then you just win the fight. I've had that stuff happen a bunch, but I've never really had the negotiation buffs happen.
So in order to have those proc, you need to make a mistake in the negotiating to really see it and the impact. So if you're not screwing up the negotiations, you kind of don't get to see that. Just like the recovery thing that they hit you with a fan and then you get over whatever negative status effect you had. That doesn't really happen unless you're getting hit with status effects. And
I am not perfect at the negotiation phase, but I feel like they could have done something cooler with that instead of having it be like a one-off chance, but you have to also fail first, which is also unlikely.
I think the thing is, On is the one who boosts your conversation stuff the most. There's a bunch of characters who will give you a chance to try again, and they all have their own way of doing it. I think it's like Ryuji's like punk talk, and Makoto's like brainiac talk,
or
and
kitty
each of
talk.
Them, yeah, and On, once she gets the crocodile tears
it's
ability,
called crocodile tears, yeah.
Once she gets that, she can turn negative conversation outcomes into positive ones, which she's the only one who does that, I think. And so if you don't have her in your party a lot, you won't get as many of those nice passive boosts.
Yeah, I don't have her in my party hardly ever.
Why not?
If you do more with Hifumi and more with the politician, you can make your combat a lot more dynamic.
Yeah, you should hang out with Hifumi. She is probably, I think, her and the politician are
Hifumi the fortune
two of the
teller?
more important ones. No, that's the fortune teller is Chi.
Who's Hifumi?
Hifumi's the chess girl.
Oh.
Chess girl, she gives you a whole bunch of useful combat abilities. I still think that Kawakami's the most important.
I never talked to her.
You should talk
I forgot.
to her.
I haven't gone to the church and like talk to her yet.
She has a lot of really useful skills. She lets you escape from any fight.
You never do that. You always win.
So what about you, Pete? Where you're who have you been hanging out with?
So I got on. I think she's the highest out of everybody. I think she's a 9 at this point. I started spending
She's
a
not
lot.
a 10 for you, Pete.
Have you made sure that you're on the
she's
romance
a 10.
path?
She's a 10, but
Are you sure you're on the romance path? Don't miss
Yeah.
it.
no, we're dating. I've already had that conversation with her. We're exclusive. So she's a 9. I started to spend a lot more time with the teacher after you guys were saying how important she was, and that got real weird.
Yep.
We're still spending time together because she's important, and I still like spending time with the doctor just because she's cool. So she's up there too. Those are probably my big 3 at this point.
Yes, I have the politician done. The doctor's really high. The fortune teller's at 7, which is crucial. That's the number you gotta get to get her special thing. And then I also have Kawakami. She would be a 10, but I got her to 8. And in your summer break, she like goes on vacation or something. So she's been at 8 for like this entire sequence. And I've been like, no.
Yeah,
Hang
but
out
when
with
she
me.
comes back, just hang out with her twice. She'll like tell you, "Yo, I got problems, help," and then you
She's
can
already
solve
told me lots of problems.
She's got a lot of problems.
She's got a lot of problems. I haven't seen the romance stuff with her, but I bet it just makes her life more ruined. That's one reason that I'm really not interested in any of the adults. I feel like all the adults that we hang with have enough problems. They don't really need like a high school boyfriend to add on. Their lives are hard enough.
Yeah, no like adult having a high school boyfriend has ever made their life easier. Like never was like, wow, weight off my shoulders. Like you've really been a pillar of support at this dark time in my life.
I mean, I don't know. The president of France married his homeroom teacher, I think.
Did he?
Emmanuel Macron.
I think that was
Yeah.
later though. I think that was after.
After high. I don't think they were
You
dating
are
in
right.
high school. But
Yeah, I don't think they were dating in high school. I think they did end up dating later.
high-profile
Macron.
example of it working out.
Yeah, I mean, like things turned out okay for him, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
it's
think we
worked out
have
for
like
him.
a lens into their relationship, but as far as I know, it's good. So
But
let's
to be
not
fair-
speculate otherwise.
Yeah, right. I don't know too much about his personal life, but all
To
the
be
same.
fair, we have a lot more Kamoshida relationships than we have Emmanuel Macron relationships with high schoolers. And I mean, at this point in my second playthrough, there will be a lot of trouble in a lot of people's lives caused by my character.
What
But-
are you gonna do? Gino, what havoc are you gonna wreck?
I'm gonna date everything,
Everything that moves.
everything,
All the
everything that
things.
moves. My
He's
character's
dating
gonna
those-
date everything.
He's dating those lobsters that showed up on the beach. He's like, you know what? I like the look of them.
Yep,
I
and the
like
crabs
the
aren't gonna like it when I
art.
two-time them.
I don't
But I'll do
remember. He says something like they're only for artistic something.
Aesthetic. It's aesthetic purposes.
Gino's
He's
got
so
some
great.
artistic purposes for those lobsters.
Yusuke is the best. I guess, so some things that I just want to mention, and I read an article by Sloane, I believe C is her last name.
You just think everyone's name is Sloan.
Yeah, he's been throwing a
It
lot
came
of
back.
stuff out today.
This isn't a callback. She wrote an article on waypoint.com, and it was about Persona 5's characters, and it was titled Persona 5 Can't Champion Marginalized Underdogs Without Queer Characters. And the article's main thrust is that Persona 5 dumps on a lot of its queer characters and does not highlight queer options for romance, but it also claims to kind of champion underdog characters. But most of the underdogs are underdogs in a very cleaned up sort of way. Like, An is a model who people kind of make fun of because she's so pretty. Ryuji is a former track star who breaks his leg. And Ryuji's probably the most, like, actually marginalized character. Like, his parents are divorced and his dad seems to be a jerk. And people dump on him for that. But, like, Yusuke is a child prodigy who is kind of socially awkward, I guess is his central crime.
Basically,
Like, the
5 out
doctor-
of 6 characters are child prodigies in some way.
Yeah, Makoto is a young genius, but because she is the class president, it's hard for her to, like, interact with other characters. The doctor is a doctoral genius, but she's been framed by someone for no good reason. The teacher is a excellent teacher, but she's abused by like some.
Well, she's not an excellent teacher. The whole story of her is that because of the fact that she's moonlighting as a maid, she's like tired at school and is starting to not care.
Well, the further on in her,
you found out she was a great teacher, but
she was a great teacher. Yeah. But like a lot of these characters are characters who are excellent, who have next level skills, who through circumstances beyond their control have been cast out from society. They are not marginalized simply by being who they are, generally speaking. They either have made a mistake or they've been oppressed by society.
If we're going to talk about like what makes a great story, it's people that have some kind of excellence and that's
not what I'm talking about. Okay. It's not like making a great story. It's if the central thrust of the story is that marginalized people should not be pushed to the margins, they should be brought forward, and like a society where people are free to act the way that they want to act without the repressive urges of society kind of crushing them down and repressing them. It's a little odd that this game is centered around so many characters who, were it not for someone just actively being malicious, would be kind of excelling, and in some cases are, in spite of that repression.
I still don't get the point.
I get the point because I'm more socially conscious, I think, than Billy in some ways. But I get the point, but I think you can be marginalized by society oppressing you. That's still you being marginalized. Like, especially the doctor. I mean, the doctor is a woman. She, especially in a culture like Japan, where being a female doctor, probably she had to go through a lot of shit. She probably had to go through a lot, and it's very clear that specifically a man, like, basically brought her down, who was jealous of her. So I don't know if not I'm saying that there's no truth to that criticism, but there definitely are examples that kind of make that criticism not 100% true. I definitely would say the doctor is one.
I guess where I sit on it is I think that if they did not handle gay characters so poorly.
No, I agree. The way they handled gay characters probably could have been bad. But again, like Lala wasn't handled poorly. Just the two men were handled poorly. I'm trying to think. I definitely say their treatment of An has not been great.
It's just an interesting thing to think about, because first, like, I played Persona 4 and Persona 5, and in both of them I didn't realize how much this plucky gang of outcasts is really made up of like extraordinary people with extraordinary skills, and they always start out as normal high schoolers, but like over time you keep adding these people who are more and more extraordinary. Like in Persona 4 you start out with like a girl who likes kung fu, a girl who's inheriting an inn, and then all of a sudden you get like a young pop star and a child detective prodigy, and all of a sudden you get these people who are really, and you know, they have their problems, but they are also kind of a cut above everyone around them. And Persona 5 kind of starts in a place where many of the characters are exceptional individuals to begin with. And so it's odd seeing people who, in some regards, are at the pinnacle of their craft and are regarded as such. Like Yusuke is a respected artist. Makoto is the student body president. And yet they still feel like they are marginalized in a way. It's an odd dichotomy to strike, and I think that the game definitely walks that line, and I don't know where I fall on it.
What would you do to change that?
I wouldn't necessarily change it. It's just it's an interesting tension in the game's storytelling.
But brief aside, I haven't gotten very far in his story. I just unlocked the ability to mess with him. But EY, am I saying his name right?
Yes.
EY? He seems
awesome.
like he might have an actual marginalized background.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't hold for all of the characters. It just holds for most of your main party.
Yeah, that's true. Most of your main party they seem like they're relatively, of the people in your main party, it definitely seems like Ryuji is the closest to actually being marginalized.
Yeah, and he's the only character who's like he's actually a screw up.
Yeah.
Like when he screws up your party multiple times just with his dumbness and lack of self-control. But everyone else is like, next level stuff. And you have like Futaba, child genius, who's a shut-in. Like one of the smartest people in the world, apparently. But I think it's an interesting thing. I just also wanted to, shout out that article because it gave me a lot to think about. So thank you. Thank you, Sloan. Thank you, Waypoint. Is there anything else that... Oh, one thing I just wanted to call out as someone who's playing through the game a second time, the fast-forward feature, really awesome. The ability to buy personas from your first playthrough, very, very cool also. So now I have a level 80 persona that I'm playing through the level 10 areas of the game with. And I mostly just hit the start button. Stuff happens. I fast forward through the combat. I hit X like 2 times to get through the menu at the end of the combat. And then I finish the dungeon in like a half hour.
Speaking of like kind of feeling like you're overpowered, have you guys specifically, what has your experience in Mementos been? I found Mementos like painful, like I just don't want to be there because it's so easy. Like maybe I'm just not delving far enough, but I get like so bored with it.
Also, they have the worst music in the game.
Yeah, I just have not, but Mementos has really not been somewhere where I've just wanted to put a lot of time into. It just feels like somewhere where I'm like, I want to go there as infrequently as possible, go like when there are like 5 or 6 or 4 requests, and just get them all done and then get out.
It just seems like, especially in the context of the other things you could spend your time in the game doing, like I guess if you were thinking, all right, how do I want to get the maximum playtime out of it? But like I'd rather just, go for a steam or chill with my peeps or do something else.
I think getting maximum playtime out of Mementos is actually doing it wrong because and this is coming from the person who likes to grind his face off, but I want to get the maximum utility from Mementos in the shortest amount of time, and that means I go through it kind of like Devin said, only when I have like a half dozen requests, but when I do it, I'm in Mementos for like 3 hours because it takes me only 1 calendar day.
Nice.
And when I do it, I go through every level, even if I have unlocked a bunch of them. And the game even kind of rewards you for putting it off because as you do more and more palaces, you'll unlock deeper and deeper mementos. So if you, for example, I made the mistake of going to mementos between Madarame and Kanashiro because I had like 3 requests to do, and when I got to the end, it was all done. I'd literally exhausted the entire dungeon, and when I do mementos, I start from the top. I don't fast travel. I just go through it all, like even the weak bullshit enemies. Like I just go through everything just to get more money and experience and collect treasure, all of it, because it's lying there, free resources. But once I've exhausted what?
No, finish what you're saying.
Once I get to the end of Mementos, at that time, I realized all I had to do was go beat Madarame's palace, and I could have used that same day for double its, like, return on investment for a calendar day. So the game kind of actually rewards you for putting off Mementos until you have, like, a stack of requests, because they're not hard.
What's the point of Mementos, like, story-wise? Like, I get what it is. I get, conceivably why you're going there. Is there a story reward to completing these missions?
Sort of, yes. I know this because
social links.
Yeah, I've looked into some of them because I wanted to somewhat condition my mementos travel based on why I needed to go there. And there's sometimes where you'll meet a character like a social link or even something else, some other side quest, and you have to do a mementos quest to unlock it or advance it. So there is a reason more than just here's some small missions that weren't good enough to make it into the real game, so go do those.
Shit, I might have to do more.
Yeah,
I might have to do more
like
mementos.
the doctor, you can't max the doctor without doing an excursion
You're probably
in mementos. I just did that
overpowered
one.
enough. You're probably overpowered enough to just wipe everything in mementos almost super easily. The hardest part of mementos is looking at the actual final boss of one of the sub demons and say, oh wait, this is just a recolored skin of some other enemy that I fought, but all of its resistances are unknown again because it's just randomly different. That's like the hardest part, but it's not difficult. It's just kind of tedious.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the time by the time you're deep enough into a social link that you're blocked by a memento strip, you'll probably be overpowered enough to just wipe the floor with whatever
Just
enemy you run
cruise.
into. The only problem is when you like mainline a particular character, then like that first character that you're mainlining, they'll probably be at your level. The boss to like get past that.
I haven't
Other
seen a
than that, I didn't have a
non-blue
problem.
enemy in Mementos ever.
Yeah, you should. You know what you should do, Billy? You should max out the politician so that when you ambush those fools, they just die immediately, and then you get them. Just run them over with your car.
Because you don't get EXP or money from that.
You
Speaking
get
of
time back to your life.
speaking of mementos, has anyone gotten besides Gino relatively deep into Mishima?
Which
Not
one's
yet.
It's getting weird.
Yeah.
I don't know where the
Mishima's-
story's going, but I'm questioning
Yeah.
it.
Which one's Mishima?
He's the fanboy.
Oh no, I haven't gotten that.
He
deep
was
enough.
like, he's
Fan
super
site
nice. I was like, oh,
developer.
Mishima, you're so friendly. You're gonna be nice. You're such a nice guy.
Turns
It's like,
out he's
oh,
not
nice
that
guys
friendly.
suck. Oh wow, you could just be on nice guys. You're just one of those people. Oh God, Mishima, stop! I don't want to delve this deep into your psyche. What are you doing?
Mishima, you need hobbies and friends. You need other things in your life. Please.
Yeah, Mishima, it definitely seems, from what I've seen, like one of those people that is like railing about how women don't give him any attention and they just like jerks. And he's a real nice guy with a fedora. That's what
Lovely.
Mishima seems like.
I'll
And I was
probably
like,
just-
Mishima, no, you're so friendly. Why are you ruining you? Stop.
I'm gonna have to ignore his story now.
That's fair. I at a certain point, I just kept maxing. Mishima was one of the last people that I maxed out because I did not want to spend more time with him. But unfortunately, he also gives you access to like EXP buffs and EXP sharing, so he's useful.
Damn it,
Yeah, that's why I
Mishima.
started going for him. Because like, oh, your bonuses are nice. And then I was like, oh
And then he's
no.
like, girls don't like guys with good bonuses.
Oh,
He hasn't
Yeah.
said anything creepy towards women. He just strikes me as someone who would. Not he has done creepy things like in the maid thing, but his storyline has not been about him being creepy towards women. It's about him being creepy, just in general.
yeah. It's about him not having a lot going on in his life and him needing to pour all of his time into this online forum. Weird.
Oof.
He's like an
Yeah.
out of control mod.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So, is there anything else about this section of Persona 5 that anyone has
Nah, I mean,
comments on or strong feelings about?
what's our
Um,
next chunk?
I do have one more comment about this, which is there was a very long part of the game where you actually couldn't make any choices in between Kaneshiro and Futaba's palace. And I get that there are parts of the game where you have to be on some railroad tracks, but I wish I had like even just one day to like go wrap up something that I wanted to do. But there was maybe like a good 8 or 10 calendar days in between Kaneshiro and Futaba's palace where I was only waking up, plot, go to sleep. Wake up, plot, go to sleep. Wake up, plot, go to sleep. And I could sometimes walk around my room and make sure my plant was okay, but it was, so I couldn't do anything. I was literally just reading a book. It was literally like a Final Fantasy simulator of just mash X to get through the story, so you can actually gain control of your protagonist again.
We
Yeah,
do have a ton of decisions coming up because it sounded like there's a lot of time for Futaba's mission.
I just finished Futaba's dungeon, and now I have like 19 days or something until the day. I forget how many, but like a fuck ton of days.
Vacay,
and
bro.
You'll get even more because there's a lot of opportunities to do stuff after that gets resolved.
Yeah, because you're still on summer break.
Yep.
But I mean,
It's
and
like
this
day
is kinda
4 of summer
goes-
break for me.
Yeah, this kind of goes into the game's design where what it's really selling, as much as it's selling a central storyline, it's also selling the illusion of perfect time usage. That your character you could be popular and successful if you just spent your time more efficiently. And so those moments where the game doesn't allow you to do arbitrary things that boost your stats all of a sudden feel more egregious than they would if this game was just a linear story. If it was just the story points without, the requirement that you read some books, I think that it wouldn't feel so weird that you go to sleep without, doing some push-ups or something. Like, that wouldn't feel like a bad use of your time. But in this game, I felt it too. I always felt like, why can't I just read a book or some shit before I go to this mandatory sleep? Come on. It'll be great.
Build some lockpicks like a normal high school student does.
Yeah, build some lockpicks. Make some pipe bombs.
So,
you do
one final thing.
Eventually make bombs.
What are your social stats, Pete?
Yeah.
We heard Billy's. I don't think you or I shared where our social stats were at this moment.
So recently I've been trying to plow a lot into guts just because I want to hang out with Gun Dude.
You should hang out with Gun Dude.
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy. I want to be a part of his life. So I've been putting a lot into guts. Charm's okay.
Do you remember your numbers or no?
No, I remember guts is the highest. Charm's next. What's the one where you get for building lockpicks? Proficiency? That one's super low because to hell with it.
Yeah, I'm at 4 in charm, 4 in knowledge, 4 in guts, 3 in proficiency, and 3 in kindness.
All right. So I think that'll do it for this section. So the next section of Persona 5 we're going to play through is the next, let's see. So we've got the Futaba dungeon. I think the next dungeon will take enough time that we shouldn't cram 2 in.
Do another single then?
Do you want to get so this would be Palace 5, right?
Yeah, let me just double check the palaces.
We say we get to the start of Palace 6, before you can go in. Maybe the scene where you learn the name of the next target. Because there's assumably going to be another.
I think that's where you should kind of. I didn't quite hit that one for this one, but I think you should kind of exhaust the entirety of whatever dungeon we're talking about. We should be aiming for exhausting every single story moment until we're obviously switching kind of for the one where the prosecutor spun the binder and was Medjed. I think at that point it was kind of done with Kanashiro's story. It seems like I'm not quite done with Futaba's story yet though.
Why don't we do 2 dungeons? I think the next 2 dungeons, one of them is shorter.
Okay.
One of them is long, one of them is short. So
should we get to
does that mean we have 2 podcasts left?
Yes.
End of 6, start of 7?
So you should get through, yes, end of 6, start of 7.
Okay.
So the next one will be our penultimate Persona podcast.
So this was our anti-penultimate Persona podcast.
That's the name? Oh man, I did not know that. You're so smart.
So, thank you, Billy. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Devin. If you want to get in touch with the show, do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Please rate and review. 5 stars is the one you want, unless your podcasting solution has more stars than that, then give it more stars. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, peace.